Millions of times agone, a spacecraft of an advanced creatural alien race arrives on an early Earth, conceivably Earth. One of the aliens consumes a dark liquid, causing its body to disintegrate and fall into a near cascade. We see its DNA break down and recombine, sewing the Earth with the structure blocks of life. In the time on the Isle of Skye off the reinforcement of Scotland, archaeologist couple Elizabeth Shaw and her swain Charlie Holloway discover a star chart in a delve which they record among the remnants of several else unconnected ancient societies. They interpret this as an assignation from humanity's foreigners. Peter Wayland, the senior author and CEO of the Wayland Corporation, funds the creation of the scientific deep space exploration vessel called the US Prometheus to follow the chart to the distant moon of Love several light times from Earth. The boat's crew peregrination in hibernation counterpoise at light speed, while the android David stays awake at the airman control to cover their entire passage. The boat arrives in the route around Ulf. After being awakened from hibernation, the crew are informed of their charge to find the ancient aliens, called masterminds, who may be the generators of the mortal race. They also view a holographic communication from Wayland himself, who tells them about his backing for the charge and that he has since failed. Wayland also informs everyone that Charlie and Elizabeth are in charge of the mission. The Prometheus enters the atmosphere of the Earth, encountering turbulence which dissipates when they break through the pall cover and can see the face. The Prometheus lands near an alien structure and a platoon including Shaw, Holloway, and David explores it, while Vickers and Captain Janik remain aboard the boat and cover their progress. Mission Director Meredith Vickers orders them to avoid any direct contact and to return if the aliens are found. Inside the aggregate, they discover a fund of permeable air. In a moist chamber that David unlocks, they find hundreds of cylinder-such-like vestiges, a monolithic statue of a creatural head, and the guillotined cadaver of a giant alien allowed to be one of the masterminds. Other bodies are laterally set up in the structure, and the species is presumed to be defunct. They view library footage of holographic masterminds running down the corridors, replying to a long-ago exigency. David intimately returns a cylinder to the boat, while the remaining cylinders in the chamber begin oozing a dark fluid actuated by the change in temperature or atmosphere when the chamber was opened. A fleetly approaching storm forces the crew to return to Prometheus, leaving crew members Melbourne and Fifield stranded in the aggregate structure after getting lost trying to find the way out. Shaw insists they take the masterminds' head back to the boat with them, and they slightly make it back alive, David delivering the couple when they are blown off the landing platform. In the boat, Shaw and medic Ford dissect the mastermind's head, removing a heavy helmet with David's help. They discover that its DNA is identical to that of the mortal race. Using an galvanized needle, they bring the head temporarily back to life. Still, exposure to the permeable atmosphere causes the disassociated mastermind's head to putrefy fleetly, and it disintegrates. Laterally, David investigates the cylinder and discovers several ampoules containing a thick black fluid. The crew of Prometheus bandy the meaning of life. The android David questions why he was created by man, and Shaw questions her own actuality as she's infertile and unfit to produce life. David designedly infects Holloway with the substance he set up within the ampoule, hiding it in a drop of liquid on his cutlet and briefly dipping it into a glass of champagne. Holloway drinks to celebrate their discovery. Laterally, Shaw and the infected Holloway have coitus. Holloway laterally looks in a glass and sees his eyes are changing, they're rheumy, and he sees a small, gray worm-such-like organism crop from one of his corneas. Back inside the structure, Fifield and Melbourne see a strange, snake-such-like critter crop from a pool of the black fluid that has blurted from the cylinders. When Milburn tries to examine the critter, it snappily grabs his hand and wraps itself around his arm, breaking it in a matter of seconds. When Fifield tries to cut it off, a sharp fluid from one of the brutes melts Fifield's helmet, exposing him to the dark liquid oozing from the cylinders. The critter also works its way into his suit and forces itself down his throat. The coming morning after the storm subsides, the Prometheus crew returns to the structure and finds Milburn's cadaver. David discovers a room containing a living mastermind in counterpoise and a holographic star chart pressing several distant planetary systems. He watches as holograms of the masterminds spark a nautical system. One of the globes that ultimately appears is Earth. Suddenly the system shuts down, leaving the hologram of Earth before. David finds a single mastermind in a near counterpoise cover and can hear its heart beating. Holloway's infection fleetly despoilments his body, and he's rushed back to the boat. As he visibly deteriorates, Vickers refuses to let him aboard, citing counter-blockade protocols. When he approaches Vickers, soliciting her to kill him, she burns him to death with a flamethrower. Shaw is devastated. A medical checkup reveals that Shaw, despite being sterile, is pregnant. David subdues her in order to return her to Earth in counterpoise. He takes the cross her father gave her, saying that it could be defiled. She escapes and uses an automated medical surgery cover in Vickers' diggings to prise a terrible cephalopod, such-like critter, from her tummy while she's still conscious. Wayland is set up to have been in counterpoise aboard the boat, and it's revealed that Vickers is his son. Wayland explains to Shaw that he intends to ask the masterminds to help him avoid his impending death. A shifted field is discovered just outside the hangar bay and attacks and kills several crew members before being killed himself. Janik theorizes that the moon they're on was used by the masterminds as a military base until they lost control of their natural munitions, vitalized the cylinders, and the black fluid they contain. The remaining crew return to the structure and awaken the mastermind, who's enwrapping what's discovered to be a space boat. David speaks an alien language to the mastermind, asking him why they made humanity and asking him to extend the life of his own creator, Mer. Wayland. The mastermind responds by ripping his head out and killing Wayland and Ford. Shaw escapes from the alien boat as it's actuated by the engineer. The still active David suggests the mastermind is going to release the ampoules of black fluid on Earth, therefore killing every living critter in the Earth. Vickers orders Janik to return to Earth, but Shaw convinces him to stop the mastermind's boat. Janik and his two surviving crewmen take off and crash the Prometheus into the mastermind's boat while Vickers flees in an escape cover. The impaired mastermind boat crashes onto the Earth, falling onto Vickers, crushing her. Shaw slightly escapes being crushed herself. Shaw goes to the escape cover to recoup inventories and finds that her aborted, but still alive alien seed has grown to gigantic size. The mastermind survives the crash, enters the escape cover and attacks Shaw, who releases the tentacled critter. It subdues the mastermind by thrusting an ovipositor down its throat. Shaw believes she's stranded on the Earth until David connections her and tells her that there are further of the mastermind's vessels away on the Earth. She recovers David's remains from the alien boat, taking back the cross David had taken from her, and together they travel to and spark another mastermind boat. Shaw and the remains of android David also take off to travel to the mastermind's homeworld, Paradise, in an attempt to understand why they created humanity and why they latterly tried to destroy it. In the final shot, in Vickers' escape cover, an alien critter bursts out of the dying mastermind's casket.